If you're seeing this, you've already been summoned by something beyond coincidence. You might think you clicked this video out of curiosity or chance, but the truth is subtler, deeper. The zero-point field doesn't send invitations the way humans do. It whispers through resonance. It calls to those on the verge of remembering who they are. So if this found you tonight, consider it a signal, a gentle tap on the glass between worlds, asking you to pause, exhale, and remember the test you've been taking without realizing it. What if I told you that the universe is testing not your strength, your cleverness, or your faith, but your stillness? That every sleepless night, every looping thought, every breath you hold tight in your chest is part of a single ongoing examination, one that measures whether you can stay coherent in the middle of chaos. Not because life is cruel, but because consciousness evolves through calibration. You are not being punished. You are being tuned. Look closely at your current patterns, the way your phone light feels heavy at midnight, the way your mind replays the same scenes trying to rewrite outcomes that never quite change, the way your breath barely touches your ribs when worry takes over. Each of these moments is a subtle question from the field. Can you remain the observer while the current pulls? Can you exhale even when nothing feels certain? The test isn't external. It isn't the traffic jam, the deadline, or the argument you keep rehearsing in your mind. The test is internal, an assessment of alignment between your inner rhythm and the rhythm of the cosmos. The zero-point field, that silent ocean of potential beneath all form, responds to coherence like a tuning fork answers another in perfect pitch. When your breath becomes uneven, when your nervous system hums with anxiety, your signal scatters. You keep asking the universe to deliver peace while broadcasting noise. But the moment you exhale consciously, without resistance, the noise dissolves. What returns is not calm. In theory, it's direct communication with the quantum fabric itself. Tonight the field is asking you one thing: will you remember how to breathe? As consciousness rather than as survival, because the breath you are taking right now is writing your next moment into existence. Every inhale encodes intention. Every exhale releases data into the fabric of reality. Most people never realize that the universe is reading them through their breathing patterns, not their words. You could pray 1,000 sentences and still transmit fear if your breath remains shallow. Or you could say nothing, sit in stillness, and move entire timelines just by exhaling in coherence. This is not mystical poetry, it's physics translated into experience. The observer effect is alive in every cell of your being. The act of awareness collapses probability into form. When you observe your breath, you're not only calming your body, you're shaping space-time around your awareness. The zero-point field listens for coherence. It aligns with those who remember how to listen back. So before we go any further, test this for yourself. Close your eyes for just a heartbeat. Inhale not to fill, but to feel. Exhale not to empty, but to release control. Notice the gap that follows the stillness between breaths where nothing happens and yet everything is being rewritten. That's the space we'll be exploring together. That's where you pass the test. Because the true exam isn't graded in outcomes, it's measured in presence. If you can exhale tonight fully consciously, you've already aligned with the zero-point field. The rest of this journey will show you how to stay there. You've been told that life happens to you, that events unfold outside your control, and you simply respond as best you can. Yet beneath that assumption lies the real loop you've been living in, a feedback system of perception that keeps recreating the same experience in slightly different disguises. You don't need a microscope to see it, you feel it every day. The pattern where one emotion becomes a thought, that thought becomes a meaning, that meaning becomes an action, and the resulting evidence circles back to reinforce the same emotion, round and round. Trigger breath interpretation, behavior proof. A self-reinforcing circuit disguised as reality. It begins innocently. Someone criticizes you. A memory stirs, and before a single conscious breath, your body contracts. The contraction becomes a pulse. The pulse becomes a signal. The signal becomes a story. They don't respect me. I'm not enough. This always happens. The story shapes your mood, your behavior, your decisions. And as you act from that state, you produce outcomes that confirm the story. The loop closes. The next time you feel that same contraction, your nervous system remembers the script and plays it faster. Eventually, the body learns to anticipate pain even in peace. The mind calls that anticipation being realistic. The field calls it incoherence. Every reality loop begins with breath because breath is the bridge between awareness and automaticity. When your breathing becomes shallow, your perception narrows. You see through a tunnel, not a field. Your awareness locks onto the threat, real or imagined, and the rest of reality fades into the background. In that tunnel vision, your nervous system can't distinguish between an actual danger and a remembered one. It floods the body with energy meant for survival, not creation. So even when you think you're solving problems, you're actually perpetuating the vibration of defense. This is how timelines repeat. The universe isn't testing you with the same scenario to punish you. It's showing you the resonance you haven't yet dissolved. Each familiar frustration is a mirror asking, will you choose coherence? This time, will you breathe differently? Because the moment you breathe differently, you perceive differently. And the moment you perceive differently, you create differently. Consider this: your breath is the first interpreter of reality. Before the mind constructs meaning, the body registers rhythm. When you encounter something unexpected, your breath instantly changes. It tightens, pauses, or skips, signaling the body that danger may be near. The breath doesn't analyze. It translates vibration into chemistry. Your entire physiology shifts before a single thought forms. Then, thought arrives to justify what the breath already decided. The order is crucial. Physiology precedes psychology, meaning follows state. Yet most people try to change meaning without ever shifting the state that created it. That's why affirmations often fail. They attempt to rewrite the story while leaving the breath. Broadcasting fear. Imagine for a moment that you're an instrument in an invisible orchestra. Your breath is the bow moving across the string. When it trembles, your entire symphony plays out of tune. You try to fix the melody by adjusting external conditions, new job, new partner, new habit, but the sound keeps echoing the same dissonance. Until you steady the bow, the song doesn't change. This is the perceptual crisis of our time, humanity, mistaking the echo for the cause. When you awaken to this mechanism, something profound begins to happen. You start catching the loop in real time. You notice the micro moments where perception collapses into reaction. You see the tiny breath holds between sentences, the slight tightening of the throat before you defend your point, the shallow inhalation before you send the text you know you'll regret. In these micropauses lies the entire architecture of reality construction. The breath is the code language through which your consciousness communicates with the field. Each pattern of inhale and exhale signals a specific probability. Breathe in panic, you magnetize chaos. Breathe in coherence, you stabilize timelines. Most people try to exit the loop through thought reading, analyzing, strategizing. But the loop isn't mental, it's vibrational. Thought is only the reflection of a prior frequency. You can't think your way out of incoherence. You must breathe your way out. Because the moment breath changes, the feedback system resets. The field registers a new signal and probability reorganizes around it. That's how miracles look from the inside, no divine exception, just new resonance. The crisis you experience is not moral or emotional, it's perceptual. You've been perceiving from a compressed state, mistaking contraction for truth. Every time fear tightens your breath, it narrows your access to the wider field of information. You see fragments of reality, not the whole. You respond to shadows rather than to essence, and each reaction reinforces the belief that life is unpredictable, unfair, or against you. But the field isn't against you. It's matching you. Perfectly precisely, without judgment. It mirrors your coherence back to you in every encounter. The argument with your partner, the sudden delay in plans, the random kindness from a stranger, all of it is the field reflecting your dominant frequency. Not as reward or punishment, but as feedback. The field doesn't care about morality, it cares about resonance. If you can understand this, you can begin to dismantle the illusion of separation that sustains the loop. You'll realize that your external challenges are not evidence of failure, but invitations to recalibrate. The universe isn't saying you're wrong, it's saying you're close, adjust your breath. That's all alignment ever is, fine-tuning the instrument until you and the field hum in the same key. So the next time life feels like repetition, like déjà vu wrapped in frustration, pause before interpreting it as stagnation. Ask a subtler question: what breath created this? Because in that question you locate your agency again. The loop unravels the moment observation enters. That's the beginning of liberation, not by conquering the loop, but by recognizing you were the one breathing it into existence all along. Now that you've seen the loop for what it is, a dance of breath, state, and meaning, it's time to look closer at what's really moving beneath it. The mechanism isn't mystical in the distant sense. It's immediate, happening right here in this very breath. The quantum field is not some faraway concept. It's the living background of your experience, the invisible fabric listening to your every signal. Imagine it as an ocean without waves until you arrive. The moment you breathe, you create ripples. Your emotion, your attention, the quality of your inner rhythm. These become the language the ocean understands. In quantum physics, they call it the observer effect. Observation alters the observed. But what does that mean when you are both the observer and the observed, the one breathing and the breath itself? It means that your consciousness is not just noticing reality, it's instructing it. The field does not take orders through words. It responds to coherence, to the internal symmetry between what you feel, what you think, and what you embody. When those three align, you create a resonance strong enough to alter probability. Not in the way of supernatural control, but in the way of natural correspondence. Reality listens to coherence like iron filings listen to a magnet. You've experienced this before, though. You might not have named it. That moment when time slows, when a decision feels already made before you make it. The uncanny alignment when someone calls just as you think of them. The calm certainty before a turning point. These aren't accidents. They are glimpses of coherence. Your consciousness in the field vibrating in synchrony. You momentarily exit the noise of reaction and stand at the still center where all possibilities rest. That stillness is the 0-point field. It is not empty. It is pregnant with potential. From that stillness, every form, every event, every thought emerges. It's the unstruck note before music, the blank canvas before color, the silence that gives shape to sound. When you touch it, you're not escaping life, you're meeting its source. The challenge is that most people encounter this stillness only in crisis or awe when the mind momentarily stops. They feel it in the hush after bad news or in the presence of overwhelming beauty. For a split second, thought dissolves and the raw field of being is revealed. Then the mind rushes back to label, categorize, and interpret. The magic fades not because the field vanished, but because the observer collapsed back into old frequencies. The emotional dimension of this is profound. Every emotion you feel is not just a mood. It's a frequency band within this field. Fear tightens and localizes your energy. It makes you small like a particle confined to a single point. Love expands and distributes your energy. It makes you wave-like, infinite, unbound. Anger, grief, joy, compassion. All are different modulations of coherence. None are wrong, but each creates a unique pattern in the field. When you resist emotion, you freeze it. When you feel it consciously, you release its energy back into flow. The field, like a mirror, reflects not the label you give the emotion, but the frequency you emit through it. Think of your awareness as light and your emotions as filters. When you're lost in fear, the filter darkens. Your world appears dimmer, heavier. When you return to coherence through breath, stillness, observation, the filter clears, and the same world gleams with possibility. The outer landscape didn't change. The wavelength of your perception did. That's why two people can stand in the same situation, one seeing disaster, the other seeing opportunity. The difference isn't circumstance, it's coherence. At the emotional level, the observer effect is empathy turned inward. You become aware of what you're broadcasting. Every thought is a frequency. Every feeling is an instruction to the field. You can't fake coherence with positive thinking if your body is vibrating in conflict. The universe doesn't respond to affirmations. It responds to authenticity. Coherence is when thought and feeling agree, and the body trusts them both. Picture your heart as a transmitter, your mind as a tuner, your breath as the signal carrier. When these three align, you enter what scientists at the HeartMath Institute call heart-brain coherence. The rhythm of your heartbeat synchronizes with the rhythm of your breath and brainwaves. In that state, the electromagnetic field around your body becomes ordered, extending outward like a luminous sphere. The field then interacts with the larger quantum field, creating a feedback loop of harmony. But what's remarkable is how natural this state feels. It isn't blissful in the exaggerated sense. It's calm, grounded, quietly powerful. You feel connected to everything and compelled to harm nothing. You begin to sense that everything you perceive is not happening out there, but within this shared field of information. The people you meet are not coincidences. They're intersections of resonance. The situations you encounter are not random. They're reflections of what your field is ready to understand. When you realize this, compassion arises naturally. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this showing me about my frequency?" The question itself shifts you from victim to participant, from resistance to relationship. and this relationship is ongoing. Every time you breathe consciously, you re-enter the conversation. The zero-point field is always listening, always responsive. It doesn't judge your vibration, it matches it. Like water conforming to the shape of its container, reality conforms to the shape of your coherence. The more stable your inner rhythm, the clearer the reflection becomes. So tonight, as you sit with this, understand that the quantum idea is not about mastering formulas, it's about remembering intimacy. The universe isn't distant, it's immediate. The field isn't mechanical, it's relational. Consciousness doesn't manipulate reality, it communes with it. The observer effect is love in scientific clothing, attention transforming what it touches by the quality of its presence. This is why exhaling matters. When you exhale consciously, you're not just releasing air, you're releasing control. You're signaling to the field, I trust the process. And in that moment of surrender, coherence emerges effortlessly. The test, as we said, is never about what happens next. It's about how you meet what happens. Because the zero-point field doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what matches your vibration. And your vibration, moment by moment, is determined by the breath you choose to take next. Long before we used the word quantum, humanity had its own ways of describing this invisible architecture of creation. The ancients didn't speak of probability waves or zero-point energy. They spoke of breath, light, and balance. They built metaphors strong enough to last through millennia, because they didn't need laboratories to prove what could be felt directly in the body. And though the languages differed, Sanskrit, Hebrew, Egyptian, the essence was the same. The breath of life is the bridge between heaven and earth. In ancient Egypt, that bridge was personified as Ma'at, the principle of cosmic balance. Ma'at wasn't a goddess to worship, but a law to remember. Her feather represented truth so light, so perfectly balanced, that even the weight of a single hidden lie could tip the scales. When a person died, their heart was weighed against her feather. If the heart was heavy with guilt attachment resistance, they could not enter the eternal fields. But this wasn't a judgment in the moral sense. It was a law of resonance. A heart out of harmony couldn't rise into higher frequencies. The afterlife wasn't elsewhere, it was coherence itself. What if Ma'at wasn't measuring morality, but measuring breath? Because when you're in coherence, your breath becomes feather light. You can feel it slow, rhythmic, balanced. But when fear, regret, or anger enter, the breath becomes erratic and heavy. In that sense, you live this weighing ceremony every day. Each moment you exhale consciously, you return your heart to balance. You pass the test not at death, but now by choosing lightness over contraction. The ancients intuited what we are rediscovering through science balance is not an ethical reward, but an energetic necessity. Across the desert to the east in ancient India, the yogis called this relationship ānāpānasati, the mindfulness of inhalation and exhalation. For them, breath was both prayer and prophecy. Each inhale was the universe entering you. Each exhale was you returning to the universe. The boundary dissolved with awareness. The Buddha compared the breath to a bridge between two shores. One shore is the world of form and suffering. The other shore is liberation. The bridge itself is neither, it's the crossing point, the gap. When you learn to dwell there, you experience what he called nirvana, not escape, but cessation of distortion. The fire of craving goes out, leaving only clarity. The Hebrew mystics spoke of it as ruach, the divine wind animating all living beings. Ruach wasn't air. It was the subtle intelligence that carries life through every atom. It was said that when God breathed into Adam's nostrils, he wasn't giving oxygen, he was giving awareness. The word neshama means both breath and soul. In that moment, human consciousness became the field's mirror. To breathe consciously was to remember one's divine origin. When a person forgot to breathe with awareness, they didn't just lose peace, they lost connection to the source itself. These traditions were never separate discoveries. They were facets of the same jewel, each culture describing the same phenomenon through its own symbols. Whether it was the Egyptian heart and feather, the Buddhist bridge of breath, or the Hebrew ruach, all were teaching the same truth. Breath is the threshold where matter remembers spirit. It's the portal through which the infinite continuously becomes the finite. The ancients understood that when the breath is balanced, the inner and outer worlds synchronize. The pyramid builders oriented their monuments to the stars because they knew human breath followed cosmic rhythm. Each inhalation mirrored the rising of Sirius, each exhalation the setting of Orion. They saw the sky as the body of the divine and the air between stars as the same breath that animates us. To inhale was to draw from the heavens. To exhale was to offer gratitude back to creation. It was a reciprocal exchange not unlike what physicists now describe as energy transfer between particles in equilibrium. Imagine standing on the riverbank of the Nile at dawn, watching priests perform the ancient rite of the morning breath. They would face the east inhale, with the rising sun exhale toward the desert wind. They weren't worshipping the sun, they were aligning with the pattern it represented: expansion, in return creation and dissolution. This rhythm is the pulse of the universe itself, and you participate in it 23,000 times a day. But over centuries, humanity forgot the language of this rhythm. We industrialized time, measured hours instead of breaths, and traded presence for productivity. The sacred act of breathing became background noise. We learned to live from the neck up, ignoring the ancient body that still remembers the ritual. Yet even now, the echoes remain. The reason a sigh feels like release, or why you instinctively breathe deeper when you look at the ocean, is because your body recognizes the ceremony. You were built for coherence. Let's bring this closer to your present life. When you feel out of balance, caught between choices, haunted by outcomes you are experiencing ma'at in action. The feather is falling, reminding you to return to equilibrium. When your chest feels heavy with unspoken truth, it's your inner Egypt asking for purification. When your breath shortens in anxiety, it's your Buddha reminding you to cross the bridge again. And when you finally exhale fully, your ruach reconnects you to the divine wind that never left. This is not metaphor as fantasy, it's metaphor as instruction. The ancients encoded practical physics into story. They didn't build temples just to honor gods, they built them to model human anatomy. Every chamber mirrored a chakra. Every corridor represented a breath cycle. Every offering was an act of alignment. When you step into stillness, you are walking those same corridors within yourself. So when we speak of the 0-point field tonight, understand that you are revisiting an ancient memory. The field isn't new, it's the modern term for something humanity has always known, the luminous emptiness from which all form arises. The Egyptians called it the primordial waters of noon, the Buddhists called it shunyata, the Kabbalists called it Ein Sof. Different names, same truth, the void isn't nothing. It's everything in potential. The breath is the key that opens its gate, and the moment you exhale consciously, you become the bridge once more between the finite and the infinite, between particle and wave, between the human heart and the breath of God. In that union, ancient and modern collapse into now. The same force that animated the pyramids, that inspired the sutras, that whispered through prophets' lungs is moving through you this very second. It never stopped. It only waited for you to notice. Let's turn from concept to experience. Because knowing that your breath encodes reality is one thing, but feeling it, embodying it, living it is something entirely different. So before you listen to another word, take a moment to feel the weight of your body wherever you are. The surface beneath you, the pull of gravity, the quiet rhythm of the air around you. Let the noise of thought recede just enough to make space for awareness to enter. You're not going to perform anything. You're going to remember something. Begin by noticing the inhale as if it were the first one you've ever taken. Let it arrive without effort, like water filling an empty cup. Notice the slight coolness at the tip of your nose, the expansion across the ribs, the widening at the base of the spine. Then exhale through your mouth, slow and steady, as though you're releasing smoke from a sacred flame. Feel the warmth of the air leaving. Pause for a heartbeat at the end of the exhale, not holding, just resting in the space between. That pause is the doorway. That pause is where the field begins to listen. Now inhale again, but this time imagine that you're drawing light through the crown of your head, down the spine into your belly. Let that light spread quietly, not as something to visualize perfectly, but as a sensation of brightness, gentleness, expansion. Exhale as though you're sending that light outward into the space around you, into your room, into the night sky, into the collective field that connects us all. Don't worry about how far it goes. Just trust that it does. Continue this rhythm in through the crown, down into the body, out through the heart. If your mind wanders, let it. Minds wander. Just notice the thought and gently return to the breath. Each return is a strengthening of the observer within you. You're not fighting distraction. You're practicing remembering. After a few breaths, bring your attention to the center of your chest. You might feel a pulse there, or warmth, or even nothing at all. Whatever you find, accept it. This is your inner temple, the chamber of coherence. When your breath moves through this space, it begins to stabilize your entire field. You might notice that your heartbeat and breath start syncing naturally. This is the body's language of alignment. You don't need to control it, you only need to witness it. Now imagine that every exhale creates a small sphere of calm around you. With each breath, that sphere expands first a few inches, then a few feet, then filling the room. Within that sphere, everything slows. The air thickens with presence. The mind quiets not by force, but by resonance. You begin to feel yourself sitting at the center of something vast yet intimate. The 0-point field alive in your awareness. You're not separate from it. You are it observing itself. If emotions arise, sadness, joy, resistance, allow them. They are not mistakes. They are energy returning to coherence. Don't label them, don't fix them. Just breathe them. You'll notice that emotions, when met without resistance, dissolve into sensation. And sensations, when observed gently, dissolve into stillness. This is alchemy through awareness. Now we'll make the practice portable, something you can use in daily life. I call it the 3-breath reset. You can do it anywhere: before a meeting, in traffic, while waiting for a message, during a moment of anxiety. It works like this. First breath, inhale, slowly becoming aware of your body's position. Feel your feet, your spine, your shoulders. You're signaling the body, I'm here. Second breath. Exhale longer than you inhaled, releasing the microtension in your face, jaw, and chest. You're signaling the nervous system, it's safe. Third breath. Inhale again, this time softly into the heart, and exhale through the center of the chest, as if the entire world were being blessed by your breath. You're signaling the field, I'm coherent. This micro-protocol takes less than 20 seconds, yet it resets your entire electromagnetic signature. If done repeatedly throughout the day, it rewires your baseline from reactivity to responsiveness. You begin meeting life from stillness rather than speed. The body learns that calm is home. For deeper exploration, you can extend the practice into what I call oval breathing. Instead of sharp inhale-exhale transitions, visualize the breath looping smoothly in an oval path up the spine. On the inhale, down the front of the body; on the exhale. There's no start, no end, just continuous motion. This loop mirrors the toroidal flow of energy that surrounds every living system. As you trace this loop with awareness, you feel less like a person breathing air and more like a field breathing light. But here's the most important part: safety and gentleness. You're not forcing deeper breaths or trying to achieve a mystical state. Over-effort creates resistance. The body opens through trust, not control. If dizziness, tension, or emotion becomes intense, simply return to natural breathing. Rest your attention on your hands or the sensation of gravity until the system settles. Conscious breathing is not about transcendence. It's about intimacy with what's here. As you practice, daily life becomes the meditation hall. The ringing phone becomes a cue to breathe. The sound of your own footsteps becomes a metronome of presence. The face of a stranger becomes a mirror reminding you to stay coherent. Every inhale brings you information. Every exhale encodes your response. You begin to experience the world not as something happening to you, but as something happening through you. Over time, this gentle repetition rewires your perception. You start catching yourself in the act of tensing before it spirals. You feel the breath quicken and immediately soften it. You notice that the same situation that once triggered anxiety now feels neutral. That shift isn't luck, it's physiology, reorganized through consciousness. The simplest actions become sacred: drinking water, typing, listening. Each act, accompanied by awareness of the breath, becomes a dialogue with the field. You begin to realize that spirituality isn't separate from the ordinary. It is the ordinary observed with extraordinary attention. As you lie down tonight, you can extend this practice into rest. Before sleep, place one hand on your chest, one on your abdomen. Feel them rise and fall. With each exhale, imagine your body sinking deeper into the mattress as if being absorbed by the earth. Between each breath, sense the silence that's not empty but full, the 0-point stillness beneath consciousness. You might notice subtle vibrations, warmth, or waves of relaxation. Let them be. You're not seeking a sign. You're remembering home. The more often you return to this practice, the thinner the veil becomes between meditation and life. Eventually, you stop meditating to find peace and start living from it. And that is the moment the field recognizes you not as a seeker, but as a participant. You've stopped sending static into the field and begun transmitting harmony. You've passed the first part of the test. This is the moment when everything you've practiced stops being theory and begins sculpting reality. The breath has softened your system, coherence has stabilized your signal, and now the 0-point field listens for your next move. What you'll discover here is that the field never tests your worth. It tests your readiness to create consciously. The shift from victim to creator is not a heroic leap. It's a subtle change in authorship. It's when you realize that life isn't happening to you. It's happening as you. The old way of living, reacting, explaining, fixing, comes from believing the story more than the state. You believed that if you could just solve the external problem, the inner turbulence would settle. But the inverse is true when your internal rhythm stabilizes, the external adjusts to match it. The 0-point field organizes around coherence, the way iron filings organize around a magnet. You no longer chase alignment, you emit it. To see this in action, imagine 3 ordinary scenes: money, relationship, and leadership. Each reveals the same principle through different masks. Scene 1, money. You're staring at a bill or a declining balance, and the familiar contraction arrives in the chest. The loop wants to restart: fear, scarcity, breath hold, problem-solving frenzy. But this time you pause. You notice the contraction instead of becoming it. You take one conscious inhale through the nose, one long exhale through the mouth. You recall the feeling of spaciousness from your earlier practice. You let that single breath dissolve the survival signal before it multiplies. In that moment, you are no longer broadcasting panic to the field. You're broadcasting neutrality, the state in which new possibilities can appear. Perhaps an idea surfaces, perhaps clarity about what to release or where to focus. The solution arises not from control, but from coherence. Money was never about numbers, it was about frequency management. When your frequency changes, resources begin to reconfigure naturally around your calm. Scene 2. Relationship. An argument starts brewing, misunderstanding raised, tone, the body tightening to defend. The old loop would jump straight into battle, fueled by the need to be right. But coherence teaches a new script. You feel the rise of heat in your body as energy, not threat. You breathe into it 3 slow breaths, each one longer than the last. The words you are about to use as weapons soften into inquiry. Help me understand what you meant. The moment you say it, the field shifts. The person across from you feels your nervous system's steadiness before they hear your words. Communication becomes communion. Love becomes the container again. The relationship doesn't need fixing. It needed a regulated witness. Scene 3. Leadership. You're guiding a team, a family, or a vision, and uncertainty hits. Delays, mistakes, unforeseen events. The mind wants to sprint into overdrive, strategize, correct, control. But this time you remember the mountain, the stillness that organizes the storm. You stop mid-motion, close your eyes for half a second, and connect to your breath. One coherent exhale changes everything. You feel the space widen around you. From that space, your decisions carry clarity, not tension. Others feel it too. People follow not the plan, but the presence. Leadership, you realize, isn't about direction, it's about vibration. When you embody coherence, others entrain to it. You become the eye of the storm, not another gust of wind. This is the architecture of creation: state, story, strategy, not the other way around. When you start from state coherence, the story rewrites itself naturally, and the strategy emerges without strain. You no longer need to overthink your next move because the field moves with you. You breathe a line act, then breathe again. This rhythm replaces hustle with harmony. Notice what happens when you apply this rhythm consistently. Circumstances that once triggered anxiety now seem almost holographic, like old echoes playing out in slow motion. You still feel emotions, but they no longer possess you. You watch them arise, breathe through them, and they dissolve. Even pain becomes data, an invitation to adjust your alignment, not a verdict against you. The turning point then isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming transparent. A transparent human lets light through. When you stop resisting your experience, the field can finally express through you unimpeded. The results look miraculous from the outside, sudden opportunities healed, dynamics, effortless timing. But from within it feels ordinary, as natural as exhaling. The paradox of conscious creation is that it begins with surrender, not force. The victim seeks control to feel safe. The creator releases control to stay aligned. In releasing, you don't give up responsibility, you step into a higher form of it. You take responsibility not for outcomes, but for frequency. That single shift changes everything. When you master your state, the external world becomes a reflection, not a battlefield. Imagine walking through your day as an instrument in perfect tune. Every encounter is music meeting music. You still have preferences and choices, but they arise from resonance, not fear. You start to notice subtle synchronicities, a message arriving right when you thought of someone, a door opening just as you were ready to step through. These are not coincidences, they are coherence in motion. The field responds immediately to authenticity. When you live like this, you begin to see the deeper meaning of the phrase passing the test. It doesn't mean outperforming others or proving worthiness. It means remembering how to exhale through uncertainty. Each challenge is a sacred rehearsal for your alignment. Each situation that once overwhelmed you becomes a chance to stabilize your signal under pressure. This is mastery, not absence of chaos, but presence within it. And soon, you realize the field was never testing you at all. You were testing your own ability to remain the observer. Every problem was an opportunity to breathe truth back into distortion. The test ends the moment you stop trying to pass it and start understanding it. Now the question shifts from what do I need to do to what state am I creating from? Because in the quantum language, your state is your message. When you breathe from coherence, the field reads your signal clearly and rearranges probability to reflect it. Creation stops being an effort, it becomes a dialogue. This is the crossing point of your journey. You no longer fight the loop. You've learned to dance with it. The universe isn't a system to conquer, it's a partner to harmonize with. Every exhale, every surrender, every pause between thoughts is a declaration of authorship. I am the field aware of itself. By now you've traveled through concept and practice, through ancient echoes and quantum metaphors, through the simple yet radical act of breathing with awareness. What remains is not another technique, but a new way of being. You have seen that the world does not mirror your wishes, it mirrors your frequency. You've discovered that peace is not the absence of movement, but the presence of coherence. And you felt even for a fleeting moment that breath is not just air moving through the lungs, it's consciousness moving through form. This realization carries a quiet dignity. It dissolves both the arrogance of control and the despair of helplessness. You no longer need to prove your power or deny your humanity. You exist within a vast, intelligent field that listens not to your words but to the resonance beneath them. Every moment, every breath is a conversation with existence. To breathe consciously is to speak clearly in that language. In this space, you begin to understand belonging in a new way. Belonging is not about being accepted by others. It's about remembering that you are inseparable from the fabric that creates others. The same field that sustains stars sustains your heartbeat. The same quiet intelligence that forms galaxies forms your thoughts. You were never isolated, you were localized awareness within infinity. The loneliness you once felt was the echo of forgetting this truth. Stillness, you now realize, is not withdrawal, it's participation at the highest level. It's what the mystics meant when they spoke of prayer, without words of action, without striving. The still mind is not an empty vessel. It's a calibrated instrument through which the field can express itself clearly. When you rest in stillness, you become a public work of art, living evidence that consciousness can dwell peacefully within form. Others feel it around you often without knowing why. Your calm becomes a mirror in which their own potential coherence begins to flicker awake. You no longer measure success by outcomes, but by the quality of awareness you bring to each act. Making tea can be as sacred as meditation. Listening to someone with full presence can reorganize an entire situation. Walking down the street with breath and rhythm can subtly harmonize a chaotic environment. You start to see that agency doesn't mean domination, it means alignment. True agency is choosing your state with precision and compassion. This is where power becomes humility, because the more you sense your influence on the field, the more tenderly you use it. You stop demanding and start stewarding. You become aware that every thought, every sigh, every heartbeat contributes to the collective frequency of humanity. From that awareness, a natural ethic arises, not imposed from morality, but born from resonance. You begin to live lightly, as Mayat's feather suggested, moving through the world without adding unnecessary weight. There's also a profound forgiveness in this realization. You understand now that everyone is breathing through their own distortion, doing the best they can with the frequency they inhabit. Judgment loses its charge because you see others not as obstacles, but as mirrors, showing you where your own signal wavers. Compassion replaces critique, not because you force it, but because it's the natural outcome of coherence. If there is a philosophy to draw from this, it is simple. Everything breathes together. The planet breathes, the oceans pulse, the stars expand and contract, and you are that rhythm localized in human form. When you exhale consciously, you align yourself with this universal respiration. You stop resisting what is and start moving with it. Life ceases to be a series of problems and becomes a flow of dialogues, each one asking, "Can you stay awake within me?" As this understanding deepens, the line between the sacred and the mundane disappears. There is no ordinary moment because each moment carries the full presence of creation. Folding laundry, answering an email, watching the sun descend, each is a chance to participate in the same consciousness that spins galaxies. You realize you don't need to reach enlightenment. You need only to remain awake to the miracle that's already occurring. And yet this awakening doesn't make you special. It makes you real. It roots you in the humility of being human, breathing, vulnerable, transient. You will still feel grief, joy, confusion, awe. But now you meet them as weather across a vast sky rather than storms that define you. You don't have to escape being human to touch the infinite. You touch it precisely by being human consciously. That's the paradox the ancients hinted at, and what modern seekers rediscover: the divine hides in plain sight, disguised as your next breath. When you stand in this awareness, the idea of passing the test dissolves entirely. There is no pass or fail. There is only presence, or forgetting coherence or noise. And each moment gives you another chance to remember. You realize the universe isn't evaluating you, it's evolving through you. The test was never about surviving, it was about noticing. And noticing, truly noticing, is the same as awakening. So as you sit here breathing into this quiet field, know this: you are already part of the order that holds galaxies in motion. You are the observer, the breath, the field, and the stillness all at once. The rest is choreography, light dancing with itself, pretending to be separate so it can rediscover reunion. If you can live from this recognition even briefly, the world around you will begin to reassemble into something astonishingly humane. Because when a single person breathes consciously, the field shifts. One heart in coherence can stabilize hundreds around it. That is not superstition, it is physics seen through compassion. And in that compassion, life itself becomes the art. You are the brush, the canvas, and the painter, all breathing together in a single continuous creation. Now before you go, let's anchor this not as information but as transformation. You've traveled far through concept, symbol, and silence. But the field listens not to memory, it listens to rhythm. So tonight we complete the circuit with breath. Sit as you are, feet grounded, shoulders soft, heart open just enough to let light through. Close your eyes if that feels safe and bring awareness to the quiet pulse within your chest. You don't need to change it, simply notice it, the faint drumbeat of existence echoing through you. Then together we breathe. First breath. Inhale gently through the nose as if drawing in starlight. Feel it travel down your spine, expanding your ribs, brightening the space behind your eyes. Exhale slowly through the mouth, a sigh of release. Feel the body soften, the thoughts dissolve into distance. The field hears your exhale as truth. I am ready. Second breath. Inhale once more, this time through the heart. Imagine the breath entering as pure coherence, calm, luminous, intelligent. Let it fill every cell with quiet order. Exhale through the chest as though blessing the world with steadiness. The field reads this signal as peace, I trust. Third breath. Inhale through the crown of your head all the way to your toes, gathering the whole of yourself, past, present, and potential. Hold it lightly for a moment, then exhale through your hands, through your feet, through your entire field, radiating coherence into the collective. The field registers this final message as creation, I remember. Now feel the silence that follows. The stillness between breaths is not absence, it's communion. That is the 0-point field, the womb of possibility, the quiet listener beneath everything. Rest there for a moment. You're not doing, you're being. You're not controlling the breath. The breath is breathing you. In this stillness, choose one word, a word that feels like a compass for who you're becoming. It could be peace, clarity, trust, freedom, love. There is no right answer, only resonance. Let the word arise naturally, like a bubble surfacing from deep water. When it appears, speak it silently into your heart. Then whisper aloud, I choose to, your word, as the observer. Feel the phrase reverberate, not as affirmation, but as declaration. You're not wishing this into being. You're encoding it into the field. The moment you speak it, the geometry of your breath changes, and the field adjusts to match. You've just rewritten your personal frequency. Now imagine this word woven into every inhale and exhale from this moment forward. You don't have to think of it consciously, it's already imprinted. With each breath, you reinforce coherence. With each exhale, you broadcast your chosen state to the world around you. It ripples outward, touching your home, your relationships, your unseen future. Remember, you don't have to sustain perfection. The power lies in returning. Every time you notice you've drifted into noise, one conscious exhale brings you back to the center of the field. You pass the test not by avoiding chaos, but by remembering calm within it. So tonight, as you prepare to sleep, let your final act be awareness. Inhale gently, feeling life entering. Exhale completely, feeling life extending. Let the breath become your prayer and your promise to meet tomorrow, as the observer to respond, rather than react, to listen rather than force. And when you wake before you reach for the day's noise, place a hand on your chest and whisper again, "I choose to," your word, as the observer. This is how you keep the 0-point field open through continuity, through remembrance. If this journey has resonated with you, if you felt even one moment of stillness that reminded you of home, then stay connected not just to this channel but to this frequency. Subscribe not as a follower but as a participant in coherence. Every person who joins amplifies the signal of awareness across the collective field. The universe does not evolve through grand revolutions. It evolves through quiet awakenings multiplied by millions. So breathe a line and become one of them. You are not a student anymore. You are a node in the living network of consciousness. Take one last deep breath in through the heart. Exhale into the vastness. Feel yourself dissolve into the same silence that births stars. In that stillness, know that you have never been separate. You have always been part of the same pulse that breathes galaxies into motion. And as you open your eyes, carry this rhythm into your world. Speak fewer words, but breathe them more fully. Move slower, but mean each motion. Remember that every exhale is a message to the field, and every inhale is its reply. You've already passed the test simply by noticing. Now exhale and subscribe to this frequency.